All right, y'all. AM/FM, Radio Free Go-Go.
Good morning, DC. The brisk mornings have arrived in the capital city, and what better way to keep warm than the Capitol Hoop Caucus? I'm Wardell McCabe, and I'm joined, as always, by my two co-hosts. First is the Leonardo of the show. It's Isaac Ajicum Harris, and the man to his left is our Donatello? It's Troy Halliburton. Gentlemen, how are you feeling this week?
Come on, man. You know, this is a Raphael account over here, man. What we talking about?
Wow.
Raphael, yeah, come on, man.
You don't seem like that reckless, though.
Man,
I don't know. You don't got. You don't have a.
I think that's a compliment.
That is a compliment. I'm just like, that was wild, but okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, let me just continue last week's trend by asking you both a question for you both. What is a perfect song?
Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
A song that has to be timeless. Some '90s dance also Biddy McLean. Yeah, damn. I forgot the song. Wow, I literally left it.
How perfect can it be?
You're right.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Oh, no.
Anyways, I personally would choose Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. And the reason why it is that I'm asking you both this question is because you, our audience, the listeners, have texted in and you have made it pretty abundantly clear you want music. And, well, as you may have noticed over the past two episodes since we've been on YouTube, we have been using our licensed music. So that's music that we can't actually get cleared because on YouTube, there's all sorts of copyright laws that we do not want to infringe because, well, lawsuits. But what we can do is we can have licensed music on the radio and on the podcast. So that's what we're going to do. We'll be picking that back up. We'll have music that you all know and love, and it'll be on the podcast feed. So if you do miss that, please just know you can catch it on the audio medium. You can't catch it on the visual side because, again, YouTube is pretty stingy that way. But just know you are able to hear it, and you're able to hear it somewhere else. But this isn't a music show. We are a basketball show. Isn't that right, Troy?
That's exactly right, Wardell. We are the Capitol Hoop Caucus on our way to becoming the most listened to and viewed basketball show in the DMV area where we talk about hoops on every level from high school all the way up to the pros, men's and women's. You know, if they're bouncing that orange ball, we're covering it.
Absolutely, and you can, of course, listen to us every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN 630. That's on your local AM radio dials. But as I also mentioned, you can listen to us on the podcast feed, wherever it is you get your podcasts. Don't believe me? Then just open up your favorite podcasting app, search up Capitol Hoop Caucus, and I promise you, we'll be right there. And as I also mentioned, we are now on YouTube. So when you have a chance, head on over there and give us a like and subscribe because it really helps to grow the show. But enough of that chatter. Let's get on to today's show. The Mystics season just ended, so not only are we going to give you an update on how their final week went, but we'll also be reviewing their season as a whole and what our thoughts were on how they finished the year, what they could have done better or just differently in general, and how they surprised us, what their path ahead could be. And that's not all, though, because, there's also some Wizards news to get through. Some injury news that stems from the FIBA Eurobasket. Not just Alex Sarr, but there's another player who just had a surgery there that we'll have to talk about. After that, we'll circle back to the Mystics because, since the season ended, we've got one more scouting report for the year, and this one will be all-encompassing. It'll be a few more players than what we usually do, and it'll be a grade for their entire season, not just since the last time we checked in with you all. But after that, hey, the AP, they just released their award winners for the WNBA regular season. So we'll talk about who it is they selected and how we would have made some different selections there. And elsewhere, we'll continue grading the offseasons around the association. This week, we'll be focusing on the Atlantic Division. And then to close things out, we'll have trivia time for the line. But first, as always, let's kick things off with the Beltway Beat. We're going to kick things off here with the Washington Mystics. As I said, their season just ended, and they had one final week of action since the last time we checked in with you all. And let's just go through that game by game. started out with a 65-94 loss to Indiana on Sunday, September 7th, a game that Isaac was actually at. That was their last home game of the season, and they followed that up with a 66-75 loss at New York on Tuesday. These two games brought their losing streak to 10 games to close out the season, most of which they weren't really in contention to win. Isaac, as I said, you were there at the final home game against Indiana. What did you see on the floor, and what went wrong for Washington?
They got out physical. I think Indiana came out ready to play as a playoff game. They treated it as a playoff game. They didn't, hold dial back. They were like, nope, we're going to act like we're in the playoffs. We're going to play like it's a playoff game. So the refs kind of gave them a lot of room for contact, and I think the Mystics didn't prepare for that ultimately because although they did show some fight later in the second half, they literally got punched in the mouth and they couldn't find a way to recover.
Well, and I think that's probably the tail of the tape for each of the last 10 games. Troy, what do you think, to a larger extent, has gone wrong with the team over this last 10-game stretch?
I think that they really got caught up in a talent deficit. So, I think that, when we looked at the Mystics coming into the season, when they had a 14.5 win total, I think that, them overperforming at the beginning of the season kind of, put the expectations a little bit higher than what they probably should have been. And at the end of the day, their overall lack of talent and depth on the roster eventually caught up to them. And so, what Isaac's talking about with that Indiana Fever game, the Fever, they treated it like a playoff game because they're actually in the playoffs, and their playoff seeding, was still up in the air as far as where they would be. So that game meant a lot more to them. Whereas the Mystics, I'm sure their players were already booking their offseason travel plans. So I think it's just two totally different perspectives. And so, I think their overall lack of talent and depth on the team eventually just caught up with them.
Yeah, I think they maybe hit a spot of self-realization, right? For the majority of this season, it felt like the Mystics could be characterized by their heart in each game. It's why so many of their games were decided between two possessions. And that seemed to completely fade away down the stretch. As you said, the reality started to set in that they weren't really going to make the playoffs. And I think you could see they were playing a lot of teams who were making the playoffs, who were in tightly seeded spots in the playoffs, who really needed to win those games. And I think that just kind of that was the difference maker there. And as you said, talent was also pretty key from that too. We keep circling back to this, but they made pretty big moves at the trade deadline. They made it known what their path was going to be. And well, it was felt, and now that their season is concluded at 16-28, as we've said, they missed the playoffs. So I think it's probably time we try to review the season as a whole. Troy, what are your thoughts on this season?
I think that this moves the needle forward for the franchise and what their goals were coming into the season. For them to be in playoff contention for 3/4 of the year, the last 10 games has been very rough to kind of watch and process. But I think that when you look at the fact that this was the youngest team in the WNBA, and they have two players who are going to be probably named to the all rookie team, I think that the future is very bright. And this season is just I don't know. It's really just a path on the ability towards getting back to where they were in 2019, and it's just going to be a rebuilding process.
I think the best way to describe the season and to piggyback on Troy is that it's a rebuilding year. One of the quotes I like to look at and think about is that there's more lessons than losses. So these losses show these growing pains. And you see some areas of improvement for your young core and trying to, figure out the chemistry on how do you move forward from this? You had two players that didn't lose a lot of college basketball games when they were drafted, Sonia Citron and Kiki Arif, and they were 500 most of their college career. So this is the first time they've felt some adversity, and it's part of that growing with that. In my opinion, I don't think the trades helped. So one of the trades did not help their growth a little bit. They had someone they probably could have grown with. But when you look at the season as a whole, it's a lot more lessons than losses, and these lessons will turn into something valuable later on and for the long haul.
Yeah, I think what a common thread here is that everyone is saying there's a lot of positive things to take away from this. And Troy, you had noted what the Vegas odds were for their record this year. They finished above that. And so would you then also say that, I know you said that they moved the needle forward. Would you say that their timeline has been fast-tracked compared to what we thought it would be at the start of the season?
No, I think that if you are, Jamila Wyman and Michael Winger, and you're running the Mystics organization, they're probably directly on the timeline that they expected. I think that fans probably wanted to fast track what the timeline is going to be, and I think that part of the reason why they made the moves that they did was to kind of temper expectations and to put fans on notice that this is going to be a very thoughtful process. They aren't just going to throw the team together and throw players together. They're going to be putting a lot of thought and due diligence into how they construct this team, and that it's going to be a process. So yeah, no, I think that what we as fans had to temper our expectations based on how they started the season, but I think that the timeline is directly in line with what the people who are running the operation want.
Oh, for sure. And they are making heavy assessments on the entire roster as a whole, and two players that they've really assessed the entire franchise around now are those two rookies, but it's not just rookie players that they've had on their team. Isaac, they've had themselves a new head coach. How would you think he fared this year?
I think he did good for year one. For year one, I think it's not a race or a rush with him. Coach Johnson did a good job with what he had, and he tried to get to the players' strengths and tried to build the team to the best he can. I think there was a couple adjustments that he needed to make as a coach, but you can tell that this is his first time in this capacity coaching for this organization. But I have no complaints with him. He's the right coach for this team.
Yeah, I think Sidney Johnson had a decent year coaching. I do have some bits of concern for his rotations with some of the players and how he was using some of the players. I think that some of his inexperience showed in critical moments throughout the season, and you just never know. Like if they're able to win some of those games earlier in the year that that they maybe should have won, then maybe they finish out the season differently than what they did. I think that it was a learning experience for him as a first-time, head coach in the WNBA. And so, I think for him, it was a building process for him to kind of, get a feel for the WNBA game. And so I would definitely be looking towards next year to see, some levels of improvement in those areas from Coach Sidney Johnson.
Well, what's helpful for him is this past season, he definitely had a lot of opportunities to go through those learning curves. We mentioned it before. They've had a lot of games that were really close at the start of the season, and even a few toward the end of the season, which meant that he had a lot of opportunities to experiment with the lineups and the rotations. And I think that struggle was a little bit more obvious in this last 10 games. Obviously, they lost them all, so it becomes a little bit more glaring. But as Troy said, that could very well be chalked up to a talent issue. They were just overwhelmed by their opposition in terms of talent. And so maybe it's just that he had some holes on the roster that he couldn't plug with the players he had available. And with that, I now ask, Isaac, I'll pose this to you first. What were their biggest holes this season?
The biggest hole this year was finding a stable point guard and trying to keep a stable point guard healthy or in just the right position to help everyone score and contribute. Just based off the way he's coaching, they needed someone that can do it two-way. So it did hurt when J.C. Sheldon got hurt toward the end of the year and we didn't get to see how she kind of meshes. So someone like that is the biggest glaring hole.
Troy, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that glaring hole at the point guard position for the entirety of the season. But I also would like to look at the backup big position. I know we're going to talk about, some of these players later on and in the scouting report, but I think that the Mystics, when you look at rim protection and how they were able to not really stop anybody from getting to the basket, I think that was a major problem for them for this season and something I would definitely address in the offseason.
Well, speaking of the offseason, they're going to have to make a lot of really serious decisions because they've got a lot of free agents coming up. They've had some unrestricted free agents, one of whom is the recently acquired, or I guess reacquired, Alicia Clark and Stephanie Dolson, the backup big. And on their restricted free agent list, they have Emily Enksler, they've got Jade Melbourne, Madison Scott, Shug Sutton, and then also Shakira Austin. Man, we never want to have these conversations, but Troy, what is the likelihood that all or even half of these players are brought back next year.
Well, I think the likelihood that all of them are going to be brought back is very, very low. Even half, I think, I would say that would probably be very low too. The one player that I think that we can probably safely say will be back is Shakira Austin, which the front office has already come out and said that she is a part of the team's future plans. And with her being a restricted free agent, that means that they have the option to match whatever offer, even if she goes out and gets another one from another team. But you really have to look at the fact that, okay, Jamila Wyman and Michael Winger really kind of, just took over the franchise last summer. And so this will be like their kind of first, heading into the offseason, like just with their ideas as far as who they would want on the roster. And they have this, bit of data from this year and saying, what exactly they were weak at and what they could be possibly good at. So I think that they're going to go out and try to bring in their own players that will fit this system that they're trying to build. So, yeah, a lot of those names that you listed off will probably not on the Mystics roster next season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a big reason why is they've got a lot of draft picks in this upcoming draft.
Hey, come on, exactly. They've got 3 first-round draft picks coming up. So, literally, there aren't enough roster spots for them. So, they're going to be people who are going to be put up for, for the expansion draft. So, there's going to be a lot of different mechanisms that will cause the fluctuation of players coming in and out. So I would expect to see almost a totally new cast of characters besides the core 3 of, the 2 rookies and Shakira Austin.
Absolutely. Another one, too, is that salary cap going to start skyrocketing pretty soon. And so, I think this team probably wants to position themselves with their core 3 to angle for another big player to come through. But let's briefly circle up to the draft. As I mentioned, they have a lot of draft picks coming up in this upcoming draft. Troy said they've got 3 first-round picks. They not only have their own first-round pick, but they also have Seattle's, and they have the right to swap for New York's first-round pick, and that was acquired in the trade with Connecticut earlier this season. In the second round, they have their own pick, and along with Minnesota's second-round pick, and in the third round, they have their own pick as well. So a lot of picks are accumulating for this team. Troy, you said there's limited roster spots there. So, I don't even know that all these draft picks can come onto this team. Isaac, my question to you is, do you think that Washington come draft night actually has all these picks on hand, or do you think they try to maneuver some of these picks and move up in the draft or maybe for another player?
I think they might maneuver a little bit. I think this draft class is very interesting because there's a lot of good players that they could see that fill those holes that they want. So I can see them moving up if there's someone in particular that they really want and they like and, that fits what they want to build.
Well, I don't know. I think that when you look at what they did in last year's draft, I think that they want as many bites at the apple as they could possibly get. And so, but also this really has to depend on what happens in the WNBA draft lottery. So, they might not have to. We could end up with the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. So, I think that, but right now, I would believe that Jamila Wyman and Michael Winger are doing their due diligence on college basketball players and trying to bring in 3 good players in the first round. And then, we'll see what happens with those later round picks, the second and third round picks. But, the 3 first round picks, I think that they really would like to bring in 3 more quality players to add with the 3 they drafted last year. So now they have a core of half their team right there in the last 2 drafts.
Oh, yeah. And, man, I think what's tough for us here as fans of the team is it's a long wait, even for the draft lottery. You said, Troy, they're going to have to keep a vigilant eye on the college basketball season. That hasn't even started yet. There's still a whole college basketball season to get through. There's still Unrivaled to get through. There's a whole lot to get through before we actually know what this team can even direction-wise go toward. And so it's just a game of patience, which I struggle with. I know everyone at home probably struggles with too. We just got to play the waiting game. But some things in the more immediate future is obviously their offseason begins now, and I guess my question to you both, what would you say is the biggest question you have for this team that you want to see answered throughout this offseason? Isaac, I'll start with you.
The biggest question, I want to see who's going to be the point guard and if Georgia Amore is your point guard of the future. Like we said, there's a lot of draft picks in here. We don't know if everyone's going to stay in here. It's presumed that Georgia will be, this point guard next year. But if they see someone else they like and Georgia's staying here in the offseason, what, maybe we should let her roll or try to trade her for somebody. I'm not sure. But that's my biggest question is if Georgia is the point guard of the future.
My biggest question would be what they would want to do with some of that cap space that they have. So, I know that we're talking about, who's going to be returning, but, I think that the Mystics are putting themselves in a position to be big players in WNBA free agency. And so, if they can go out there and get a big time player to come in here and that might be the thing that will expedite this rebuilding process.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's how soon can they re-sign Austin? Because with her being a restricted free agent, do we want to allow her to hit that open market and then you have to match whatever it is that she's offered? Because this is when that cap inflates, and she is the best free agent available that's currently on this roster, right? She's the best player that's hitting free agency, and she might get a pretty significant offer, and that may affect the direction of the team. Who's to say? But that's our Mystics for the time being, coverage for right now. We will circle back on them a little bit later with the scouting report. Let's quickly go over to the Washington Wizards because, we got to close out the Beltway beat. And I said it earlier, they've had players participating in FIBA Eurobasket. Let's first start with France, who was eliminated on Sunday, September 7th, in the round of 16 against the country of Georgia. That score was 70-80. We also noted last week that Sarr was ruled out for the remainder of the tournament due to injury, and it unfortunately seems that he wasn't alone. On Fridays, news broke that Bilal Coulibaly had undergone surgery to repair a ligament tear in his right thumb, an injury he sustained during his play at Eurobasket. That news coming from ESPN's Sham Charania. Troy, how serious is this injury, and how much time is Coulibaly expected to miss?
Well, I think that the injury is very serious. Anytime you go under the knife is very serious. And then also the thing is that it's happening directly right before the training camp and the season's getting ready to start. So we're talking about Bilal Coulibaly, who's heading into his third year. And this is, the third year is really kind of like the biggest year for young players' development in the NBA. This is usually the year where you see players take that, that big leaps in their games. And so for him to miss training camp going into his third year, for him to, they say he's going to be out, at the beginning of the regular season, I think that this definitely is a major setback for him in his career. And, I just have a lot of questions because – I think that a lot of people, we were talking about Bilal Coulibaly's his play in Eurobasket and why it seemed to be so down, and now we may have an answer as to why that was. But my thing is, when did he get hurt? Like, because if he got hurt and he was still playing through the injury, then like that's kind of an issue for me with the French national team. It's like, if this guy has a torn ligament in his thumb, like he should have been shut down before they were putting him out there, and he's scoring 0 points in games, and so. I think that Bilal Coulibaly, for me, his development is very critical for this season. And just to have him, be behind the 8 ball heading into the season before it even starts is kind of concerning for me.
Oh, it definitely is. And I mean, we were talking about last week with Alex Sarr's injury. We had heaped praise on the French national team for sitting Sarr for the rest of the tournament because we're like, all right, it's great that they're showing and taking caution with the player's future and his career. And to have this be the opposite effect for Coulibaly is very worrisome. I mean, you wonder, was there an internal pressure to try to win something and they couldn't really take the loss of another NBA caliber player from their squad? That could very well be true. And as to when he got hurt, shout out to Varun Shankar of the Washington Post. He actually had a post on X earlier, and he noticed that Bilal's hand was heavily taped for France's game on August 31st, which is exactly when his level of performance dipped. So he had 2 games ahead of that. And for the 2 games ahead of that, he had averaged 12.5 points per game and 15.5 rebounds per game, shooting 52% from the field and 72% from 3. And each of the 4 games after that is when you saw that dive. That's the games that he had his hand taped up, and the numbers back that up. He fell to 3.2 points per game and 3.75 rebounds per game, shooting below 30% from the field. So that seems to be exactly when it is that he got hurt, and why it is that France kept him in there, I honestly have no idea.
I think it was a player stubbornness that kept him in there, not just France, because if they were quick to shut down Alex Sarr, I feel like Bilal's like, no, I want to play, I want to show and try to prove that he can play through it, even though it probably wasn't the best idea for him. And that's the biggest risk when you play in these tournaments representing your country. Although you are doing it, there's a risk of saying, hey, man, you still have your day job to return to when you come back. So, I mean, yes, it's heroic and courageous that Bilal tried to play through it, but it wasn't a smart business move. And France should have just said, hey, look, whatever pride or stubbornness you got going on, you're going to sit.
Yeah, and this is an injury, as was already said earlier, it's going to sideline him for the entire duration of training camp, all likelihood, and possibly part of the beginning of the season. It's not great for the Wizards, and it is going to be interesting to see how this lineup shapes up for the actual opening day of the league. But elsewhere for the Wizards, Tristan Vukcevic also was playing in Eurobasket, but for Team Serbia. And like France, they were also eliminated in the round of 16 after losing to Finland last Saturday, 86-92. Bit of a random upset there if you're me as a Nuggets fan. But anyways, Vukcevic didn't play a single minute in that game, so I guess it really doesn't matter. There's nothing to assess there. All right, it's time for us to take our first break. The next time you hear us, we'll launch this week's scouting report to grade the individual seasons of the Washington Mystics. This is the Capital Hoop Caucus on ESPN 630 and the ESPN 630 app. Welcome back into the Capital Hoop Caucus on ESPN 630. That is Troy Halliburton, and that is Isaac Harris. I am Wardell McCabe. Thank you all again so much for joining us. As we made note at the top of the show, the Mystic season is now over, so it feels appropriate for us to have one final scouting report on the team, which is when our hosts take turns reviewing and assessing the players' performances, letting you know whether their stock is up, down, or neutral. Only this time will be for each player's entire season, so there's going to be more players than you're accustomed to when we go through this. And just a quick note, as we're going through the roster, we'll be doing so in order of the minutes they played for the Mystics this season. All right, you guys ready to begin?
Yeah.
All right, then let's grade the Mystics roster this season. First up, Troy, stock up, stock down on Sonia Citrone.
Oh, stock's got to be all the way up. I think Sonia Citrone, coming in as the number 3 overall draft pick, I think that, people were expecting her to, have a decent WNBA season, but for her to actually, be in contention for Rookie of the Year, I think that she really showed that, she's a player in this league. And, I love the fact that Sonia Citrone, that she got better as the season went along. And, after they traded away Brittany Sykes, that, she really showed that, she could be a primary scorer in the WNBA. And so for me, her stock's got to be all the way up.
All right, Isaac.
Sonia's stock is up for me because not only her scoring improved, her defense improved. She showed more that she is that person, and she's turning into, dare I say, a hooper, your favorite hooper's hooper, because of how she stepped up all of her level. Like, she kind of took the jump saying, all right, Brittany Sykes is out. I'm going to just take over everything I can and do the best I can for the squad. So I have to give her stock all the way up.
All right. Well, you used a cliche in there, and I love that cliche. Favorite hooper's hooper. So I'm going to give you the point for round 1, and let's circle back around. Isaac, stock up, stock down on Kiki Iriafen.
Her stock went up, but not too much because she did have a little slide. But overall, it has to be up because she did finish strong. She broke a couple records in there, and she made AP All-Rookie team. And she kind of showed that she is possibly going to be the face of the front court for this organization for a long time, so stock up.
Troy?
Yeah, I'm going to go stock up as well. I think that, Kiki definitely had an amazing rookie season to be named the WNBA All-Star. She broke all type of Mystics records. I really was impressed by her ability to score down in the post, but I was impressed by her mid-range jump shot. I think that she showed me a lot more skills than what I thought coming into the season. And I think that, really that she, last year when she was playing on that USC Trojans squad behind Juju, I think that she didn't really get a chance to showcase all of her skills, and that, the Mystics really put her in the best possible position to succeed. And so, I think that she had a definite successful season. Her stock has to be up for the year.
All right. Well, if you know me, you know I love the midi. And just for mentioning, that means that Troy gets the point for this round. And Troy, I'll ask you for the next round. Stock up, stock down on Shug Sutton.
Well, stock's got to be up for Shug Sutton. She averaged 7.4 points per game this season. That's up from, she averaged 2 points per game last year. She shot 42% from the field and 35% from 3, while also being the team's, primary defender on some of their guard play. I think for me, Shug Sutton has definitely established herself as a WNBA rotation player. And so, if there were to be a name that the Mystics would add as far as a player that they probably need to keep, I think that she would be at the top of that list, right behind Shakira Austin. So her stock has to be up for this season because she, like I said, she came in, she did her job, and really solidified herself as a WNBA rotation player.
Isaac?
I have to agree. Stock up, but for a different reason. It's because of the way she played these last 2 games. She really tried to step up herself as a scorer and try to take that leap, although it wasn't a great leap in comparison, she was going to go double digits. Sugg did, it just showed impressively that, hey, she has the ability to make a way to score. And that's, to me, as a former player, that's one offseason away of becoming, I'm not just a rotational player. I'm the 6th man coming off a bench.
Well, she knew her job and she knew her role. She knew it well. And you know who else knew their role this round? Troy. That's why he gets the points this one. But let's move on to round 4. Isaac, stock up, stock down on Jade Melbourne.
Stock down. She didn't finish this year as strong as I would like post the trade deadline. I think she kind of took a step back a little bit, although she did have some highlights to where she kind of showed out where she is the capable scorer that she is. I think, in my opinion, just a slightly little stock down.
Troy?
Yeah, for me, their stock has to be down. When you look at what she did last summer with the Australian national team in the Olympics, I think that the level of expectation was a little bit higher for her coming into this season. She only averaged 5.9 points per game this season, which was barely up from 5.4 points per game last season. But she played 14 minutes last year, and she played 23 minutes a game this year. So she played almost 10 more minutes per game, and her production really didn't go up at all. So to me, I think that her shooting percentages went down for the year. I have to look at the fact that she had an increased role and really didn't do much with it. And so to me, that is a little bit disappointing from her, especially with the level of expectations that we had coming into the year for her.
Well, her expectations may not have been met, but I can certainly say that yours were. That's why this round goes to Troy again. And Troy, I'll tee it up for you here. Stock up, stock down, and Shakira Austin.
Stock's got to be up. The AP Comeback Player of the Year. I think when you look at the fact that she came into this season on very shaky ground with as far as just her ability to be on the basketball court. So the fact that she really kind of got into her rhythm with her health, and she was able to come back and play the way that she did this year, and really establish herself as a key cog in the foundation of this team moving forward. I was very impressed with how much she dominated some of these games. And I'm going to be happy to see her in a Mystics uniform for years to come. But her stock for this season as AP Comeback Player of the Year has to be up.
Stock's up. She's a local girl. We got to give her the credit. Stock's always going to be up. She came in there literally questioning she was going to be traded at the trade deadline, and then she's solidified and hey, maybe she is the foundational piece to stay with this incoming rookie classes that are here to come. So I got to give Shakira that. Stock all the way up.
Local girl from where?
From VA.
What city?
I want to say I'm tripping Fredericksburg.
It is Fredericksburg. And for that reason, I've lived in the Burg, so you get yourself a point for that. And we're going to move on to the next round. Isaac, stock up, stock down on Stephanie Dolson.
Big Mama, I'm sorry, your stock is down. I hate to say it. It toward the end of the year, you kind of shied away from what the purpose was as that backup big to help out, to be that backup big to help, secure that front court. Unfortunately, the age is starting to show. Although you're a great veteran presence, I think it's time for Stephanie Dolson to be on a title contender team rather than being the vet that she's teaching. So stock a little down.
And Troy?
Is she going to be a coach on that team? Or I'm going to say stock down for Stephanie, Big Mama Steph. I think, she really struggled this year, going up against some of the elite bigs across the WNBA. And to me, as one of the weak spots on the team, being like that backup big position, I thought that, she tries and she puts forth a lot of effort, but when her 3-point shot isn't falling, she pretty much is a liability on the court because she gives no rim protection whatsoever. I think Big Mama Steph still has a role in WNBA teams, as that, wily vet who can come in and, help educate the young players. but I think that her best days playing on the court are probably behind her.
I didn't even have water in my mouth and you almost made me do a spit take. I don't know if that's possible, so you'll get the point that round. Let's close it out here, Troy. Stock up, stock down on Emily Engstler.
I'm going to say stock the same. I'm going to say her stock remained the same. I don't think that there really was no level of expectation for her coming into this season. And so for her to play the way that she did, I thought that she had some moments throughout the season where it was like, okay, this girl might be a player. And then, that 10-game losing streak happened. And I think that, Coach Sydney Johnson eventually lost faith in her ability to be on the court and be productive. So she started playing a lot less minutes towards the end of the season. And so that's really tough when you can't even get minutes on a team that is on a 10-game losing streak. So, but like I said, her level of to have her have the season that she did really come out of nowhere, I think that for her, it would definitely be a success. But I can't say that her stock is up because of the way that she finished the season.
Isaac?
I'm going to have to disagree. I'm just going to say her stock is down. She, although is a young player, still trying to figure out her way in this league, she's older than some of the rookies, and she had the opportunity to step up. Like you mentioned, if your coach loses faith in you during a 10-game losing streak, which has happened to me before, I've had a coach lose faith in me and not play me when we're bad. And when you're the older vet, that's not a good look. So, especially for her, if she's looking for another opportunity, whether with the Mystics or another organization, she didn't get a chance to really show that and use those opportunities that she needed to use. So, stock down.
All right, well, we reward taking a stance here, so that last point goes Isaac's way. But for this week, tallying up the results, a score of 4-3, that is Troy, who comes out ahead in my scoring book, but everyone at home, you may have a different scoring card. So please feel free to let us know by texting into the show at 833-377-6630 or messaging us on Instagram or X. Where, Isaac?
On Cap Hoop Caucus on X and then Capital Hoop Caucus on Instagram.
That's right. Or you can also scroll to the podcast description of this very episode and click on Message the Show. And now that we're on YouTube, you can also leave a comment to let us know who it is that you think provided the better score this week. But some of the players that we mentioned there, and you both made your arguments in discussing those players, have made the AP All-Rookie team because the Associated Press has unveiled their award winners for the WNBA's 2025 regular season. They were as follows: AP Player of the Year, Asia Wilson; Defensive Player of the Year, Asia Wilson; Most Improved Player, Veronica Burton; Sixth Woman of the Year, Naz Hillman; and then Comeback Player of the Year, Shakira Austin; and on the All-Rookie team, Paige Beckers, Layla Lakin, Janelle Saloon, Kiki Irifan, and Sonia Citron. So now that we have the AP awards, what better thing to do than select our own award winners for this? And so we'll start with Troy. Who do you have as the WNBA's MVP this year?
Man, now this was probably the closest race that a WNBA voter probably had this year. And, shout out to all the people who actually have a ballot and they had to submit it because this is a tough one. But for me, I went with Asia Wilson. And it comes down to a very simple thing for me, the numbers. The numbers added up, and, she led the league in total points. She led the league in total rebounds and points per game. She had her defensive win shares, offensive win shares, total win shares. She led her Las Vegas Aces on a 17-game win streak to end the season, and they went from basically out of the playoffs as a 9 or 8 seed, and they shot all the way up to the number 2 seed. I think that she just really solidified her dominance in the WNBA this season. And so, to me, it came between her and Nafisa Collier, but Nafisa Collier, she just missed too many games for me to not reward Asia for just putting in work for the entirety of this WNBA season.
It was tough for me because I wanted to see Fee get her MVP after last year heartbreak, but who knows? Maybe she might get a Finals MVP. We don't know yet. But Asia Wilson, the GOAT from the Midlands, South Carolina, I got to give it to her. Troy explained it with the stats. She stepped up. She carried what was supposed to be an 8th and 9th seed team back to the 2 seed. She's a GOAT. She's dominating. We're looking at the best equivalent of Shaq in their prime. You can't stop her. You're not stopping Asia.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, and this is all in spite of Fee. She had a 50-40-90 season.
Exactly.
So, there's nothing to discredit for Collier's season. It's just, and I feel bad, but Asia just had a higher peak. For a very large part of this season, everyone was choosing Collier as their MVP, and it's partly because Asia was showing some signs of regression. But the last month and a half, it looks like the best version of A'ja Wilson we've ever seen. It's crazy, and that's wild to say. But no, I think that she has done enough to close this season to merit an MVP. But let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. Isaac, who do you have as DPOY?
Defensive Player of the Year, I have Alana Smith. Just because she's been showing – there's nothing that has been stopping her. I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to give A'ja just both too because she's been very effective defensively too. But Alana Smith has been just as effective. She's been averaging almost 2 blocks a game this season. With me and that logic, that's Defensive Player of the Year right there, said and done.
Well, A'ja Wilson led the league in blocks, so I'm going to say that is the same reason why I'm going to go with A'ja Wilson. She also had the highest defensive win shares for a WNBA player. She was second in rebounds per game, but led the league in total rebounds. And so for me, like, I think that her defensive intensity was probably a main catalyst for the Aces finishing out the season as strong as they did. And so, yeah, I think she's the best defender in the WNBA, and so, I would give it to her.
All right. Now let's move on to Rookie of the Year. Obviously, the Mystics had some players in the running. Troy, who do you have as your Rookie of the Year?
I'm going to go with Paige Beckers. I think that, what she did in Dallas from an individual standpoint was nothing short of amazing. Like, she broke multiple WNBA rookie records. She had the highest scoring total game this season with her 44-point outing. And to me, I just think that she played with a level of poise throughout the season that just really showed that she's just unflappable as a player. And so I really enjoyed the fact that she is a dominant scorer, but she was also out there getting her assist numbers up. She and with her teammates really not hitting a lot of shots. I think that, when it comes to individual efforts, and this is an individual award, I thought that she put forth the best rookie individual effort and that she deserves this probably in a landslide.
Yeah, I certainly would love to see the numbers of how many missed shots off good passes that Paige has had, because there's been a lot of wide open looks she's like teed up for her teammates, and they've just been blanking them. But Isaac, who do you have as Rookie of the Year?
Y'all going to hate me, and I'm going to get text messages, but I'm going to be like Drewski and stand on business.
Still going with this.
I'm still going with it. And I don't care. And I love Paige. She had a historic rookie year, but I'm still going to give it to my girl Sonia Citron, just because of her impact alone. Although, yes, Paige did outscore her in most records, and offensively, defensively, I don't think they're as equal as they are. Sonia proved to be a defensive anchor for the Mystics and actually increased their win share more than Paige did. I know it's an individual award, but I'm looking at impact on team overall. If you take away each player, if you take away Sonia, Mystics are probably even worse than Dallas at one point, because you even had Dejanay Carrington in there. So that's where I'm standing on. I know it's going to look a little crazy, but I'm staying on that. And like my favorite song that was played, I'm not walking away from the love from a great Mystic.
I hear you. I'm going with Paige. I mean, she had 44 points, and she shot like 17 for 21 for the field.
I know she's efficient. She's great. But like I said, I'm staying. I'll be the one voter. Like, you know what?
All right. I can respect that. But tell me, who do you have as your sixth player of the year?
My sixth player of the year. It did change. I still want to give it to. Why am I blanking on the name for the Atlanta Dream?
Naz Hillman.
Yeah, Naz Hillman. I still want to give it to Naz Hillman, but yeah, I'm still gonna give it to Naz Hillman. She's played a productive role, and especially with that Atlanta Dream team, which to me kind of came out of shocking with a brand new coach. You never know what to expect, but she played a role with a brand new system, brand new team, a lot of new players. Yeah, she kind of solidified herself.
Shout out to the stud buds. I'm going to go with Natisha Heidemann as my sixth player of the year. She averaged 8.8 points per game, which was one of the highest point totals for a bench player. And to me, like, the fact that it's not about how you start the game, it's about how you finish the game. And to me, like, I think that she's had so many clutch moments this year and is a mainstay and reason why the Minnesota Lynx were the best team in the WNBA. And she was just highly entertaining over the course of the entirety of the season. So, again, shout out to the stud buds and Natisha Heidemann I hope that she accepts her award on stream for the chat.
I'm going to go with Heidemann as well, and part for the same reason that I went with Asia. It's Heidemann just closed out the season a little bit better than Hillman did. In September alone, in the 5 games there, Heidemann averaged 18.5 points per game, just under 3 rebounds a game, and just under 4.5 assists per game. Compare that to Hillman, who also had 5 games, and she was averaging 12.2 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. So bare numbers, Heidemann just closed out the season a little bit stronger, and I think for the better part of the season, they were pretty neck and neck. So I think that Heidemann just did just enough to surpass there. But let's move on now to most improved player. Troy, who do you have as your MIP?
I'm going to go with Veronica Burton. I think that when you look at the Golden State Valkyries, like they didn't have any expectations coming into this season. And for them to have made the WNBA playoffs, and Veronica Burton probably was, one of their best players for the entirety of the season, I think that she really showed that, she's got game. And, with her being, probably one of the main catalysts as to why they had such a successful season, I think that this is a very appropriate award to be given to her for, what her role was on that team.
Isaac?
I have to give it to Veronica Burton. She's just played an amazing role and improved their stats, especially coming to an expansion team, which you have no idea where it was going. And initially, for that first couple games there, we had no idea what they were thinking either. We were like, okay, what are we doing here? And they figured out what they were doing, and they're like, we're here to win. And Veronica Burton is a huge puzzle piece for that and why they're so successful right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit against the grain there. I hear you on Burton. I think one thing that I've always had a gripe with this award, in any sport, in any league really, is that it tends to be given to those who just see a massive increase in minutes. But I think I want to go with a player who only saw a minimal increase in minutes and just saw a massive increase in production, and that would be Azurá Stevens with the Sparks. Because she only saw an increase in 3.5 minutes per game, which is very small year over year, but her core stats increased pretty significantly, that being her rebounds, assists, and points. But not only they increased, but her shooting also did massively. Last year, she shot 39% from the field and 40% from the year prior. This year, she hit 47% of her shots while shooting more per game. And so I think that's wildly impressive, and that is also true for her three-point shooting. The past 2 seasons, she shot 35% and 32% from the field, respectively. And then this year, that bounced back up to 38% on more shots. So for a player who is at this age, I think she's, 28 or 29? I think that is a massive improvement and step forward for her career. And it helped for a team like the Sparks try to get into playoff contention. Let's close it out here. Isaac, who do you have as your coach of the year?
This is actually a tougher award than you think. I in my opinion, Natalie Nakase, she's been excellent, leading an expansion team to the playoffs. That has not really happened before, and she's been as a first year head coach in the WNBA. Awesome, but for this purpose, I have to show out the amazing work that Carl Simsko for the Atlanta Dream did. This guy. I mean, we're looking at the women's college basketball version of John Beeline, who's having a successful pro coach career. To come from never coached in the WNBA to be the founding head coach of Florida Gulf Coast, founding Division I head coach when they moved up from D2 to Division I, and from coaching at Walsh, being Maryland assistant, to now coming in no waters, no experience whatsoever, and putting on the season that he did for the Atlanta Dream, you would think they were crazy to hire him. The difference between Natalie has an edge on him because, she's been in the league. She's been around this. She's been around great organizations. She's got a couple championships as a coach. She's known as a developer. It was going to eventually happen for her to be a head coach. This dude, we had no idea. We had no idea what we were going to get with the Atlanta Dream. And for that, although I do love Coach from the Valkyries, I got to give it to my man, Carl.
All right, Troy?
I'm going with Natalie Nakase because, honestly, I think she just exceeded expectations in a level that I don't think anybody was prepared for. The Atlanta Dream had a good team. They have all-star players. They should be where they are and over the course of the season. Nobody expected the Valkyries to come out this year and make the playoffs. And I feel like, with the team I'm not saying limited talent because they have some good players on it, but they don't have the type of players that you would expect to come out and play the way that they did this season. And I thought that, she was just pretty much a chef in the kitchen, give me whatever you kind of ingredients you got. I'm going to come out here and make a good meal. And I thought that she really did her job over the course of this season, and they would not have been in the position that they were in if it wasn't for her. And so I was highly impressed with just her X's and O's, her clock management, her game management over the course of the season. You know, they beat the Mystics 5 times, so it's like I got up and close and personal to being able to watch those games, and it's like, yeah, this. I wish he was coaching our team. How about that?
Hey, look, and she also, I mean, that team, it set a very unreal and unfair expectation for both Toronto and Portland coming into this league. Is like these other expansion teams are probably going to think that they have the chance to make the playoffs like Golden State just did. I don't think that's going to be likely. And so I totally understand Nakase being the choice. For me, it was tough. But just because of the way the Aces closed out their season, I think I got to go fill-in mode. I'm going to go Becky Hammond for this.
No.
Because they massively turned their season around. Let me go all on board with this. I vibe with that. All right, let's go ahead and just also note before we end this segment, the official WNBA awards, they haven't been announced. These were just the AP awards, and so everything that we're doing is just pure speculation. But they will be unveiling their awards as the playoffs progress. And speaking of playoffs, real quick, what team is everyone choosing for the playoffs, Isaac?
Minnesota.
Troy?
I'm going with the Aces. They lost in 3 months. Like, I'm going with them.
It's a
and they
stud
got the
bud.
best player. Look, I'm going with the Aces.
It's the stud buds. I mean, what are you going? They know how to close, and I think they'll be the ones that try to knock off the Aces. And Minnesota, great fan base, and to be honest, I can't wait for them to do the electric slide to that title.
All right. We're going to do a commercial again. When we get back, we'll have the four-court press to grade the off-seasons of the Atlantic Division. You're listening to the Capital Hoop Caucus on ESPN 630 and the ESPN 630 app. Good morning and welcome back to the Capital Hoop Caucus on ESPN 630. Alongside Isaac Ajigam Harrison, Troy Halliburton, I am Wardell McCabe. It's about that time in the show for us to run the full court press, which is when we open the show up to discuss the rest of the association. And as we noted at the top of the show, we are continuing our course to grading the off seasons of each team in the league. And today we're focusing on the Atlantic Division. We're going to go team by team to review their additions and departures, and with our hosts providing their grades along the way. And just like we have the past few weeks, we will have some listener questions from the text-in line. And if you want to submit your questions in the future, just leave them either in the comment section on YouTube or by texting the show at 833-377-6630, or even clicking message the show in the episode description of this podcast, or also by hitting us up on social media. Where, Isaac?
At Cap Hoop Caucus on Twitter and Capital Hoop Caucus on Instagram.
All right. Sorry for that technical difficulty. That's on me there. But when you have your questions, just let us know with this next week, because that's when we're going to be grading the Southeast Division. So if you have any questions for the Magic, the Heat, the Hawks, Hornets, and of course, the Washington Wizards, next week will be the time to do so. All right. Let's grade the off seasons of the Atlantic Division, starting first with the Boston Celtics. They finished last season 61-21. That was good for second in the East, and they lost in the second round to the New York Knicks. That series was the one that saw them lose Jason Tatum to a torn Achilles. This offseason, they brought in Chris Boucher and Luka Garza in free agency. They also traded for Anthony Simons in the deal that sent Drew Holiday to Portland, and also leaving the team were, well, Luke Cornett, Georges Niang, and Kristaps Porzingis either through trades or free agency. Then in June, they drafted Hugo Gonzalez at pick 28. Troy, how would you grade the Celtics offseason?
I'm going to give it a C. To me, I think that what they did this offseason, it really, they are the prime example of the pitfalls of the second apron. And so when you look at, what they did on the basketball court, they got worse. Like but in the front office, they saved some money. So I guess, the new owners coming in, they helped their pockets out. But as far as what they did on the actual basketball court, I'm just not impressed. I think that they got considerably worse than what they were last season. And, I have to give them a C.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, because we're not going to sit here and disrespect a DMV legend for signing there, Luka Garza. So for that, for that only signing alone, I'm giving them a B. But Troy is right; they did not get better on the court. It's going to be interesting to see what schemes Coach Mazzulla does do with this team with Jason Tatum less Loster. I know that one of the biggest criticisms that a lot of members of the media said, like, hey, he needs to start playing his younger guys to give them development, to let them step up and just see where they are. So I think that's going to be the big question here is, hey, are you going to let Hugo Gonzalez actually make mistakes and play through? Are you going to let Max Shuga, when you call him up, play through those mistakes and actually maybe find a way to be part of that rotation? To let these rookies grow with these guys, because like they need all the help they can get. But I'm gonna give them a B because it's an unfortunate circumstance that they have to go through with the second apron.
Yeah, you gave them a B, and we have our very first question texted in here, and I'm gonna bring it to Isaac because I feel like you might have a stronger opinion on this. With the amount of talent that the C's lost, are they going to punt on this season? And would Mazzulla even let that happen?
Wow. With talking to Joe and knowing how he is, no, I don't see Joe doing that at all. He's going to treat it as like every other season, like, oh no, we're going for a chip. Like, I don't care what we got. Like, he's going to run it down to the ground. So no, they're not going to punt it unless he gets direct orders. And I think he's going to refuse it.
All right. Well, we've got 2 name drops already in this segment. Well, let's see if we get a third one here with the New York Knicks. They finished 51-31 last season. That was good for third in the East. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Indiana Pacers. This offseason, they've re-signed Mikal Bridges to a 4-year extension. They've also added in Jordan Clarkson, Guerschon Yabusele, and just yesterday, Malcolm Brogdon in free agency, former Wizard. Shout out to him. And they also fired Tom Thibodeau and brought in Mike Brown. So, Isaac, what grade do you give the Knicks for their offseason?
B, because I'm still not sure about Mike Brown. That's the only person I'm not sure about. Leon Rose is doing everything right as a GM. He saw the holes that they needed to fix. You need to get a backup center. You got Yabusele. You need to get backup guards. You signed Landry Shamet. And you have Malcolm Brogdon on a non-guarantee. And you re-signed Mikal Bridges to a team-friendly contract a little bit for the most part. I'm just not sure. I'm like, okay, like I would have gave the coach that got you there for the first time in 25 years, run it back. I still think James Dolan was distracted by the spear, and he realized, and after the spear was done, he's making money. He looked at it, he's like, oh, I really don't like Tibbs. So that was a problem. I think that's not the great solution. I mean, I'm happy for everybody else. The chemistry's there. I think this is a make or break year, and I hate to say it, Mike Brown's got a lot of pressure on him, so I'm not sure. So I'm going to give them a B-.
I'm gonna go with a B. I do think that they did get better on the basketball court with some of their acquisitions. I really like the Malcolm Brogdon signing. I'm one of the people that think that he's got a really good chance of actually making the roster. I know that he signed a non-guaranteed deal, but I feel like they threw that in there. The non-guarantees because of his injury history. So if he can just stay healthy, like I think that he definitely adds. Some well-needed depth to this team. We're talking about a team last year that, in the playoffs, that they were only playing 7-8 guys. And so for them to have, added Jordan Clarkson, added Malcolm Brogdon, I think that those players are going to really help them out as far as just their depth and allowing their starters to play less minutes, and hopefully that'll make them fresher for the playoff run. And so with the Mike Brown versus Tom Thibodeau thing, like to me, I can't really say if Mike Brown's going to be worse than what Thibodeau did, purely based on the fact that Mike Brown has had a lot of success coaching in the NBA. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that they downgraded at that position. So to me, I think it's a solid B for what they did.
All right, and we have our next listener question, and this one I kind of think probably came from a New York fan. Troy, I'll ask you this. Why would New York not be considered the favorite in the East?
Well, because the Cleveland Cavaliers are still in the conference, and they won 64 games last year, and they actually got better in the offseason. So that's the reason why. They have the Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley. They added Lonzo Ball. They have a great coach. They have, a great backcourt. They have depth all around. Like, I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers have to be the favorites in the East.
All right, now let's move on up to the Great North and go with the Toronto Raptors. They finished last year 30-52. That was good for 11th in the East. They re-signed Jakob Poeltl and Garrett Temple this offseason, and then they also signed Sandro Mamuklashvili. I think I said that right. I hope I said that right in free agency, while also losing the aforementioned Chris Boucher. And then in the draft, they selected Colin Murray Boyles at pick 9. Also of note, though, in June, they agreed to part ways with their now former head of basketball operations, Masai Ujiri. Troy, what grade do you give the Raptors for their offseason?
I'm going to give them a C. I think that, for a team that really didn't have a lot of success last year, I think that they needed to get younger with their draft pick. And a lot of people thought that they reached with that Colin Murray Boyles pick. To me, I think that when you really look at the Raptors and what they're doing, they are in actual NBA purgatory right now. They're not going to be, to me, playoff contenders, and they're not going to be bad enough to bottom out to be, one of those top lottery teams. I think they're going to be play-in bound, and I guess that's something to cheer for if you're the Raptors. But to me, that just screams mediocrity. So I got to give it a C.
I got to give it a D. And I'm sorry to any of the Raptors fans. I expect more from them, but just the way this offseason's kind of gone with them, although I do think Colin Murray Boyles is a great draft pick, this Raptors team is just a collection of young guys and a couple of unknown guys. I mean, you have Scotty Lewis, but you lost Chris Boucher, who was actually a stable force for them to be like a stable ground anchor as a vet and also productive. I just think that's just not – I don't know what they're doing, and I know the new ownership had issues with Masai. All right, I'm very curious to see what the Rogers Communications ownership group has in store to say, you know what, we can do better than Masai Ujiri, who actually brought this country its first NBA title. So I'm very skeptical, and it's a D.
All right, let's move on to Brooklyn now. The Nets finished 26-56. That was good for 12th in the East. They have re-signed Day'Ron Scher and Zaire Williams. And, well, they brought Cam Thomas back on a qualifying offer, so a bit of a contentious relationship building there. And also in free agency, they brought in Haywood Highsmith and Terrence Mann, and they traded away Cam Johnson to bring in Michael Porter Jr. And in free agency, they lost D'Angelo Russell and Trendon Watford. And then in the draft, they selected Yegor Damon at pick 9, Nolan Traore at pick 19, Drake Powell at 22, Ben Seraph at 26, and Danny Wolf at 27. Isaac, give us a grade for the Nets offseason.
For the Nets, I hate to say this, it's a D- for two reasons. One, the first reason is the more basketball reason. What are we doing? Like, you drafted all your first-round picks. You had enough to make a move, make some leverage. You didn't do that. And they looked all right at Summer League. Danny Wolf looked great, but we don't know because he's an older college basketball guy. But you did bring Haywood Highsmith, who's a great productive big. Cam Thomas, they're literally, and you're talking about a team in NBA purgatory. You're in NBA purgatory. Now, the other reason, Michael Porter Jr., oh my God, your PR team needs to get a hold of him. He might be the detrimental problem to the team. So just like a straight up D-.
MPJ may have brought them from NBA purgatory to NBA hell. I think he's a totally different class.
That was.
Troy, what grade do you give them?
I'm gonna give them a C, just because they had 5 first-round picks. So we're gonna go out on a limb. At least 2 of those got to be good. Like just the law of averages says that they're gonna hit on some of this stuff. But yeah, no, I think the Nets. I'm going to give them a C. The only reason I didn't, go as low as Isaac did there is because, I actually can see the sense of direction and what they're trying to do. So, I'm not saying that they executed everything that they're trying to do to the best of their ability, but I see the vision. And so, for that, I'm going to give them a C.
All right, now let's move on to Philadelphia. They finished last year 24-58. That was 13th in the East. They've re-signed Justin Edwards, Eric Gordon, and Kyle Lowry. They also brought in Trendon Watford in free agency while losing Jared Butler, Ricky Council IV, and Gershon Yabusele. Then in the draft, they selected VJ Edgecombe at pick 3. Troy, what grade do you give the Sixers for their offseason?
I'm going to give it a B. I think that they had a really good offseason. I really love the VJ Edgecombe pick. I thought that it was very bold for them to, pass on Ace Bailey and take VJ Edgecombe. And the biggest thing is I don't even think that was really that tough of a decision for them. I think that they really evaluated VJ Edgecombe's game and think that, he's going to be a player that can help them out right now and in the future. And so, when you're really looking at, the fact that they have, real playoff expectations, but they also have this, high draft lottery pick. I think that they're trying to, execute the 2 timeline thing as best as possible. And you have to also remember that Jared McCain was looking like, a possible Rookie of the Year candidate last year, and he got injured. And so they're essentially, going to be adding him to this year's roster. So I think that they had a pretty good offseason. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 76ers actually, proved a lot of their doubters wrong coming into this year.
I'm gonna give them a B+ because drafting VJ Edgecombe was a bold move, and I think it was the right move for the long term. They're in a position to rebuild and also reconstruct per se to where they're not so far out of purgatory. If the Joel Embiid and Paul George experience does not work, because you have Jared McCain, you have Tyrese Maxey, he's just getting ready to enter his prime in the next couple of years. So I think they position themselves to be prepared for anything goes at this point. So shout out to Philly.
All right, now let's ask our final listener question, Troy. This one coming from a listener. If Embiid isn't fully healthy, do the Sixers need Maxey to take the next step in order for their season to not be dead in the water?
Yeah, that's an easy question to answer. I think that they need Maxey to take that next step, whether Embiid's healthy or not. Really the way that, Joel Embiid has, his injury history, I don't even think that's something that you can count on. So, I think that Maxey has to take that leap as a basketball player, as a team leader, as a point guard in this league. So that means not only being able to get his own shot, but that means creating easier shots for his teammates. And so, I really I'm really going to be looking at Tyrese Maxey to see if he's ready to take on more responsibility.
All right, well, those are their grades. If you disagree or agree with them, then message the show and let it be known. Again, our number is 833-377-6630. That is 833-377-6630. You could also open up the podcast description of today's episode and click message the show, or maybe you just go to YouTube and click on the comment section. Add a comment there, or you could even message us directly on X or Instagram. Where, Isaac?
At Cap Hoop Caucus on X, and then Capital Hoop Caucus on Instagram.
That's right. And next week, we'll be grading the Southeast Division. So send us any questions that you may have, and we will be answering them on air. But before going anywhere, let's just circle back to the full court press because there are some quick updates to go through for the NBA following their recent Board of Governor meetings. Let's first start with some rule changes. The first one being the heave rule. That meaning that shots taken beyond 36 feet in the final 3 seconds of the first 3 quarters of each game will now have a different impact on players' stats. If such shots are taken and missed, they will no longer have a negative impact on player shooting percentages. But if they are made, then they will have a positive impact. Isaac, what's your reaction to this?
Jokic might be the greatest shooter of all time. If this works out, that's how I look at it. Like Jokic, Peyton Pritchard, when it's all said and done, man, we might have some great shooting debates.
I love it just because I really get tired of the depth. I mean, the NBA players hitting those fake keys after the buzz has already sounded. So it's like now this will definitely put players in a position where you're going to see a lot more half court heaves or 3/4 court heaves. And, to me, I think that's really good for the game because anything that can increase the scoring output. And, the thing is, people love to see those amazing shots. And somebody like Steph Curry, who is constantly worried about, his 3-point percentage. Now, this is a guy who can, he could probably be, just heave it from, the other free throw line. So we're going to see more amazing things happen. And, I think that's great for the league.
Yeah. One thing that should be noted, the 3 players that were just named, they are actually 1, 2, and 3 of the NBA last season in these shots. So that Jokic was number 1, Curry was number 2 in these shots taken, and Pritchard was number 3 in the heaves taken in the closing seconds of games. And I also agree. I'm loving this because it has tangible proof of working. They just carried this over from the G League. Last year was the first year they enacted it. And just for reference, to show how this impacted the G League, during the 2022-23 season, there were 344 heaves which qualified under these rules. And then the following season, there were 337 or 373. But last year, the first year they implemented this rule in the G League, there were 565 heaves.
Taking chances.
Yeah.
That is a 51% increase year over year. So I'm very excited for that to happen here. And it's nice that these players no longer have to worry about it impacting their checks, because for players that are on big contracts, I understand why it is that we'd be frustrated. But when you're a player on the fringe of these rosters, I totally understand why you'd be hesitant to heave those up there. And so for them to all have a green light, I think can be very fun for us. But another update that came to the league was an update to the NBA Cup. That being now that the semifinals will now take place at the home arena of the higher-seeded team in both conferences next season. In years past, both the semifinals and finals were held in Las Vegas. So going forward, only the finals will be held in Las Vegas. Isaac, your reaction?
I think it's great for the fans because now we get to really see a home court advantage type in an in-season tournament. And this is what Adam Silver wants. He wants it to try to mimic that kind of feel in Europe, although do I think that would be successful? We're not sure. But this is like the best way to do it, with all stakes on the line to get to the NBA championship for the Cup. Yeah, I want to see a home court advantage here. So, yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, the biggest thing I agree with you, Isaac, is the home court advantage that it gives to the teams that play well throughout the course of the NBA Cup. What do they call it?
The Emeritus.
The Emirates.
The Emirates America Cup, NBA Cup. I love the fact that, the home court advantage is an actual big thing that matters. And so I think that when you look at over the last 2 years of the NBA Cup, some of those semifinal games in Las Vegas, you got teams flying into Vegas on Thursday night. And I think that they just were a little weary of, what's actually going on while they're out there in Vegas, and this will definitely, to me, make the product on the floor a little bit better.
Yeah, especially, not just the product on the floor, but Isaac, as he said, it's good for fans. It's good for the viewing fans at home, too. I don't know about you guys, but I was watching these games last year, and the crowd was dead in the semifinal games. And so to have it on in front of a crowd that has stakes in this, I think is going to be a massive improvement for the league. And so that's absolutely something I commend them for on making that move. One quick final update, and we don't really have a lot of time here because we're running short on it, but there has been another update on a segment that we committed to last week on the Steve Ballmer and the Clippers situation. That being that Pablo Torre Finds Out has another follow-up episode, during which they unveiled some more information that they've uncovered, and that being that a late payment due to Kawhi from Aspiration was due in October 2022 for $1.75 million. He wasn't paid until December 2022. A few days after, a $2 million investment was made by Clippers minority owner and former college roommate of Steve Ballmer, Dennis Wong. Quickly, Troy, what is your reaction to this?
Yeah, the circumstantial evidence it seems to be piling up, and I think that, shout out to Pablo Torre, who's, treating this story like an album rollout. Like, he's just, just kind of piecemealing us the information as he goes along. My stance really has not changed, though. I still don't think they have that smoking gun that they need for Adam Silver to bring down the hammer. And so, I think that this is highly entertaining to kind of, follow the breadcrumbs that Pablo's laying down. But to me, it really doesn't change too much as far as a potential punishment.
Well, they may have not found a smoking gun, but that's definitely gunpowder. That's definitely gunpowder there. Like, I don't know. That may lead to a smoking gun or a musket, since it's a gunpowder. But yeah, I'm gonna change my stance on it a little bit. It's getting closer to a smoking gun, and maybe we call Steve Ballmer Tony Soprano because of the way the money's been moving. But yeah, it's getting a little more interesting.
Yeah, I think what this does is it kind of removes the plausible deniability factor. And so what I think this just about guarantees is some punishment come through, but it will likely be nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Though, as Troy said, this is being treated like an album rollout. So I have no idea what else it is that Pablo Torre knows or what else he's able to find out. So there may be more that gets uncovered here, but we have not found the piece that throws everything at them, right? The league doesn't have enough to throw the full book at them. There isn't going to be some massive punishment from what we know so far. Because, again, there's a good chance that by the end of the day today, there might be some other bit of information that Pablo or some other journalistic entity is able to uncover and reveal. It's just, again, as we've had the conversation last week, it's hard to find a reason why it is that they would find that smoking gun because no one involved has any reason to talk about this any further.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Uncle Dennis. He's out there, collecting money on Kawhi's behalf. Who knows if Kawhi even knows that this stuff is even going on? But the biggest thing I think for this story is the fact that it's a lot of circumstantial evidence, and to me, like this type of thing, I wouldn't say is commonplace around the NBA. But, if they started really diving into all the improper benefits that some of these players are getting with some of these contracts, I think that, I think that there's in the best interest of the NBA for this story to, kind of go away than for them to keep, pushing it in the forefront. But also shout out to Mark Cuban, who's like defending Steve Ballmer like it's his blood brother.
So weird.
Yeah, it's actually really not that weird when you think about it, because if you look at his relationship with Dirk, I mean, I'm sure he probably paid Dirk so crazy under the table that he's like, yeah, this is normal business.
All right, we're going to take one final break here. On the other side, we'll have Trivia Time from the Line. This is the Capital Hoop Caucus on ESPN 630 and the ESPN 630 app. Welcome back into the Capital Hoop Caucus. I'm Wardell McCabe, joined by Troy Halliburton and Isaac Harris. If you're just joining us, well, let me catch you up on today's show. We have reviewed the Mystics' 2025 regular season now that it has concluded, and we did so while having our final scouting report of the team on the year. And, well, also in the show was a recap of the Wizards' performances at Eurobasket and our selections for the WNBA Regular Season Awards and grades for the offseasons of the Atlantic Division. Miss any part of the fun? Do not worry. You can always catch the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, and while you are there, be sure to give us a rate and review because it helps us out immensely. And, well, we're about to close out the show, but as everyone at home knows, there's no way to close out the show without first heading to our game, which means I have to head out and make way for our next host. Everyone, and welcome to Trivia Time from the Line. I'm your host, Guy. Now, you all know the name of the game, but let's get to the aim of the game, which is this: to score more points than your opponent. We'll have 5 minutes on the clock, during which our contestants will have to correctly guess as many players' names as possible in a surprise category of our choosing. And with that in mind, let's meet today's contestants. First up is Troy, who doesn't realize that his left shoe has been untied this entire time. Major look. Oh, fell for the oldest trick in the book. I mean, come on, man. And to the right is Isaac, as well. Someone has to lose. Anyways, this week he'll be naming the players who scored the most points ever during their rookie season in the WNBA. When you make your guess, please provide the year they were rookies, the team they played for, their position, and point total along with their name. Now, get ready and let's begin. We're going to start first with Troy.
Let's go. 2025 guard, Sonia Citron.
It is Citron. Isaac.
2024 guard, Indiana, Caitlin Clark.
It is Caitlin Clark. Troy.
All right, let's go. 2008 Los Angeles. Let's go with Candace Parker.
Candace Parker. Isaac.
2019 Dallas. I want to go with Arike Egbumawale.
Egbumawale. Troy.
All right, let's go. 2006 Minnesota. Let's go with Simone Augustus.
It is Simone Augustus. Isaac.
I'm going to go with 2025 guard Dallas Paige Buchers.
It is Paige Beckers. Troy.
Well, 2025 Washington, is that Kiki Arifin?
Correct. Isaac.
2002 Indiana forward Tamika Catching.
You got it. Troy.
Ooh, okay. Oh, 2006 guard. That's got to be Diana Taurasi?
Not Diana Taurasi. Isaac.
1997 Houston guard 621 points. Want to say Tina Charles. No,
not Tina Charles.
No.
Troy.
1997, that's got to be Cynthia Cooper.
It is Cynthia Cooper. Isaac.
2018 Indiana center Aaliyah Boston.
It is Aaliyah Boston. Troy.
2000.
Or no, wait.
No, that is
No.
That is not right.
No, it is not right.
Yeah, Leah Boston.
Wrong
came in the
team,
league
wrong
at 20
team.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be Las Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, that's what. Oh, you got the wrong team.
Wrong team.
Oh my. Well, then
that should be a free point.
Nah,
Come on, guy. You can guess again. You can guess again.
Asia Wilson.
It is Asia Wilson.
That's
Troy.
that's insane. Okay. Damn. 2016 Seattle, is that Nneka Ogwumike?
No, it is not. Isaac.
I'm going to try to go with 2006 Phoenix. It's not Diana Taurasi. It has to be her running mate. 2006. Why am I slipping on that one? Oh, I know it.
Oh, I got one.
I know it.
Oh,
Troy.
no,
I know it.
I thought I had one. Well, maybe. Hold on. Seattle, 2016. Is that Breanna Stewart?
It is Stewie.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I knew it. Okay.
Isaac.
For the tie, I should have got that one. I'm regretting this one. 2006 Phoenix. Guard Phoenix. It's not Diana Taurasi. That was the year before for her. Who did they draft?
This is the only one that's open, too.
Yeah, it's the only
correct.
one. It's the only one. I want to say.
And we're going to move on to Troy.
Is that Becky Hammond?
It is not.
No.
Isaac.
I did.
Sylvia Foles.
No, it is not. Troy.
Man. I don't know.
And back to Isaac.
I know what I'm thinking. It is. It's got to be. Who won the title with her? Because they won the title like 2 years later. Or no, they lost it. I'm trying to think. Hard. Jasmine Thomas?
No, it is not. Troy.
I'm done, guys. I have no idea.
All right, Isaac. All's all yours.
Who's the guard that played? I'm gonna regret this.
And I'm already up. So yeah, you need this. Go ahead, man. Look, if you get it. Congratulations.
It's not Sylvia Foles. It's not Jasmine Thomas because I know she played for Phoenix. Who ran with Diana Taurasi in 06?
Last second guess.
I'm stumped.
All right, well.
I'll take a victory.
2006 Phoenix guard, 624 points, Cappy Pondexter.
Wow.
Which means this week, a score of 4-7. You're champion again, Troy. That does it for us here at Trivia Time for the Line. We'll see you all next time. Bye. All right, guys. Who won this week?
Troy did.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I'm not mad because I just completely forgot Cappy Pondexter started her career in Phoenix. So
Yeah.
that was like, I kept thinking about her later years. So that was a.
Oh, that's wild. I'm glad I got that Breanna Stewart one. I was looking like, but then I was like 26. I was like, damn, Stewart only been in the league 9 years.
I know,
thought
it's
she was
crazy.
older than that. Yeah.
She was in college for a while.
Yeah, but still, like, I'm like, damn, she's still kind of young.
All right. Well, we're almost done with the show, but as always, we close it out by taking our last shot, which is when each of us has 24 seconds to speak on anything basketball related beyond the limits of the DMV. And so it could be a shout out, hot take, personal gripe, whatever it is. Now is the time to let it fly. The only rule is that when your 24 seconds is up, your microphone will shut off. Isaac, we'll start with you. Are you ready to take your last shot?
Yes. This is not basketball related whatsoever. This is a college sports thing.
What?
It is West Virginia versus Pitt. This is the weekend. It's part 1 of the backyard brawl. We got to win the football game to get to the basketball season. So, hey, it's their neighborhood against our state. 1.8 will. Let's go Mountaineers.
Okay, what just happened?
I got to. It's the weekend.
Basketball related. One of the rules is basketball related.
Basketball season's coming. This is part 1. We got to get this one. And then we got to go,
He tried to take advantage of the new heave rules.
That's
basketball related.
It was throwing up anything.
Yeah, we got to look at the rest. Does that count? I don't know. But Troy, you ready to take your last shot?
I am ready. Yeah, for basketball related, shout out to the Redeem team who went into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame last week. But more importantly, shout out to 2 players who are actually still playing in the NBA on that team, LeBron James and Chris Paul, who are current NBA players who received those orange jackets. Shout out to them for just being 20-plus year veterans and greats.
LeBron finally rocked the baldy. We'll see if he actually embraces that for the season. Anyways, let me take my last shot. Earlier this week, Magic Johnson chimed in on a debate which has been a plague to the discourse of basketball over the past decade, one which I am ready to leave in the past, Jordan or LeBron. I'm genuinely sick of this conversation, and I think that everyone should be with me in leaving this behind because it's just preventing us all from embracing each other and celebrating the game that we all love, locking arms, and just, well, who cares? LeBron's better anyways. Who cares? All right, that'll do it for us here. Troy, for our listeners, where can they get more of your work?
You can always find me on the platform formerly known as Twitter, now X, at Troy Halliburton, and then check out the Ideal Taste Substack.
And Isaac, same question.
You can always find me on X at IkeIrieItes and on Instagram at Isaac_Ajikumharris224.
All right, well, thank you both so much for joining me today, and thank you all at home for joining us here on the Capitol Hoop Caucus. I said it a few times through the show, but it bears repeating. If you missed any part of today's show, then be sure to check out the podcast feed wherever it is you get your podcast. Just type in Capitol Hoop Caucus in the search bar, and I promise you, you'll find us right there. While you're there, we'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, give us a rate and review. The algorithm loves it, which can really help us grow the show. And while you're there, also be sure to head on over to YouTube, because if you want the chance to see us and look at us and wave to us or flip us the bird, I don't know, then you do have that opportunity to do so. And hey, if you're listening on ESPN 630, then stick around because we have a whole lot happening on air today. Right after the break, you'll hear the Virginia Sports Radio Network for the UVA pregame show as the Cavaliers are set to host William and Mary with a 12 noon kickoff. Immediately following that, we'll go into the Orioles Radio Network presented by Sprinkler Fritters Local 669 as the O's take on the Blue Jays in Toronto. First pitch is scheduled for 3:05 p.m. Eastern. And from there, we'll join the in-progress broadcast of the New York Yankees at Fenway against the Boston Red Sox. Then we'll close out our day with ESPN's college football as the Florida Gators travel to the Bayou to take on LSU. All those broadcasts will be airing live on ESPN630DC.com, the ESPN 630 app, or 630 on your local AM dial. Signing off for Isaac Ajikumharris, Troy Halliburton, and myself, Wardell McCabe. This has been the Capitol Hoop Caucus, reminding you to visit nonamebooks.com/prison-program to purchase or donate books to those impacted by the prison industrial complex. You can even sign up a loved one who would like to be a member of the No Name Book Club. Please be kind to one another. We'll talk to you all again at the same time next week.